there is a famous Pareto principle that if you focus on 20% of the key activities, 80% of your work and targets would be achieved. That holds true equally for the GST law as well, or any other tax administration. If you start focusing on 20% of the key activities of a business, you will get most of the tax payment, more than 80%. There would be much importantly seamless compliance from the taxpayer, and everything goes on smooth. There would be less litigation and better tax administration. That's something which we all know, but unfortunately, that is something which is not true for some transactions in GST. Related transaction is one such category where there is no application of this principle. This does not contribute too much in terms of revenues to the companies or to the department. Yet there is so much confusion on this aspect, whether it is on valuation, whether it is on taxable event, and whether it is on ITC. There has been multiple documents, multiple entries, multiple amendments, multiple AARs. So all in all, it has led to a complete chaos in terms of understanding this subject. So, with this note, I welcome you to another webinar of the firm relating to employee recoveries. Today, I am being joined by my colleague Mohit, who would be taking up this webinar along with me. So, let us understand this employee related transactions more in detail. Before that, we conducted a quick poll with the participants and other people where we simply asked them what is their feeling about GST law in general relating to taxability, valuation, IT related aspect. Interestingly, the poll says that 77% of the people feels that the law is not very clear on in relation to taxability, valuation, and other aspects. A few 4% are not sure, and 19% feels that this is kind of a better law. But all in all, you can clearly see that there is a one-sided, anonymous views about this law, and I completely agree with this stuff. Uh, if you really talk about what are the perquisite facilities given to an employee, broadly these can be classified into various categories. Few notable of them are canteen services. Other one is the employee transportation. Then we have accommodations. Medical facility insurance is provided by employers. There is scenarios of asset transfer, be it laptops, bikes, car, etc., and other facility as well, like iCards, uniform, headset, etc. So all in all, there are a lot of things which flows from employee to from employer to employees. Now, in few cases, these things are monetized in the form of recovery, either at cost, at partial values, or at full values, and a lot of time there is no recovery against these items. I think the most important complex thing is when there is no recovery, then what is the correct GST positioning is something which we will try to deliberate in this presentation. So our today's presentation, we will be focusing on these three aspects where there is no recovery, there is partial recovery from employees and full recovery. What would be the GST implications on outward side? And also what would be the ITC implications on these slides? So today we will be covering taxability, valuation, ITC, CSR expenditure, notice pay, and at the end we will have live Q&As. So with this, I hand over my session to Mohit, who will take us through the legal provisions dealing with these aspects. Over to you, Mohit.
Thank you, Gaurav. Good afternoon, everyone. As Gaurav has highlighted multiple issues pertaining to employee-related transaction. Now, in furtherance to this, we'll be discussing the legislative backgrounds and its implication thereon. Coming to the most important section of our webinar, that is taxability. Under GST regime, the taxable event is supply. The supply can be divided into three tests. That is, first, there should be a supply of goods and services, be it sale, be it transfer, be it lease, anything. But importantly, the second test, it should be made and agreed to be made for a consideration. And the third, it must be in the course or furtherance of a business. However, there are few transactions which even made without consideration will qualify as supply. Such transactions are being provided in the Schedule 1. The relevant entry for our discussion is entry 2 of Schedule 1, that is supply between related person. Under GST regime, employee and employer are treated as related person. Hence, in a nutshell, a supply made by an employee to an employer or vice versa, even without consideration, would qualify as a supply. Now, coming to an interesting part, that is Schedule 3, which provide that a supply shall not be treated as supply of services or goods under GST Act. The entry which is relevant for our discussion is entry number 1, that is service made by employee to the employer in the course or in relation to his employment will be outside the scope of GST, which is furtherance to a press release that a supply made by employer to employee made by employer to employee under the contractual agreement will also be outside the ambit of GST. Now, moving ahead to a next test, that is in the course or furtherance of business. The term business has been defined under GST as the relevant clauses are the clause A, any trade, commerce, business, whether or not with a profit motive. Now we come to the most important clause for our discussion, that is any activity or transaction in connection with incidental or ancillary to the above clause A will also be qualified as business under GST.
So if you really look at the way taxable event has been framed under GST, especially in relation to employee-related transactions, there are essentially three pillars. First, there has to be a supply either of goods or service. Second, it has to be in the course or furtherance of business. And third, it should be backed by consideration. Now, all these things needs to be cumulatively satisfied. Then only you can levy GST on any transaction. In an employee related transaction, the only exception given is on the consideration. And the other two tests, which is in the course or furtherance of business, and there has to be a supply of goods and services, are still there, which means you have to satisfy these two tests in case you want to tax a transaction which is not backed by the consideration. As I discussed in the beginning of my webinar, all these things are very vague. Law is being split into different pages, sections, press releases, etc. There is no clear defined guidelines how would you tax this transaction. Let us dwell more into this. We'll take up the first test, which is in the course or furtherance of business. See, if you are incurring an expenditure on any employee related transaction, if you are claiming a deduction of that expenditure and that is being allowed to you as a genuine business expense, then we are saying that this is a genuine business expense to you. Now, interestingly, there is a common definition of business if you want to claim ITC and in case you want to supply goods or services in this business. If on one hand we'll say that deduction is admissible for the expenditure because this is a business expense, then there's no room to argue that when you are doing a monetization of this expense via an employee recovery, that is not in the course or furtherance of business. So, which means it is effectively covered under the main clause. If there is any room for doubt, then government is very smart. They have cut clause B and C, where they've said that incidental activity, irrespective of volume, frequency, regularity, etc., is also covered. Which simply means that if it is a recovery from an employee, then that is being done in the course or furtherance of your business. So to conclude, the first test of business is being satisfied. However, this is not very easy. Let us see few advanced rulings where there are divergent views taken. So the first advanced ruling is in the case of POSCO India by Maharashtra. The subject matter was the deduction of hotel expense for the managing director of the company. AR held that this is not in the course or furtherance of business. So they said that this is a personal expense, not the company's expense, hence not in the course and furtherance of business. So if you apply this logic, the moment you monetize it, there is a room to argue that it is not a supply as well. In case of Jotun India, Maharashtra AR said that if there are health insurance recoveries from employee, again it is not in the course and furtherance of business on the logic that the company is not in the business of providing insurance services, they are into the manufacturing sector. However, there are other school of thought as well. In case of Celtic Polymer and MNEC Pharmaceuticals, there was canteen recovery from employees. The advanced ruling authority, including the appellate authority, they have concluded that it is in the course and furtherance of business. So you can see there is a start of debate on this subject, but in our considered view, The moment you do a recovery from an employee, it is in the course and furtherance of business, GST is applicable. Now, here I would like to introduce the concept of perquisites and recoveries. So, in the subsequent slides, we will be discussing more about these concepts, what will qualify as perquisite, what will qualify as recoveries, and our whole discussion would be revolved around these things. Like if you have monetized the transaction, what will be the implication? In case you have not monetized your transaction, then what would be the implications? So, on the assumption that there is a levy of GST on employee recoveries, let us see how would you value this transaction. So, Mohit.
Yeah. Now, once a transaction qualified to base supply, the next question arises: what should be the value on which GST has to be discharged? Under this, we'll be covering three scenarios. Firstly, no recovery, when no amount has been collected by the employer from the employee. Second, when a nominal amount has been recovered, say out of 50 rupees, 20 rupees has been recovered by employer from employee. And the third, when a complete amount has been recovered by employer from the employee. Moving ahead, under GST regime, value of a supply shall be the transaction value. That is the value which is paid and payable for the goods and services. But in that scenario, price should be the sole consideration and the buyer and seller should not be a related person. But as discussed earlier, employer and employee are treated as related person in the GST regime. Since now, transaction value cannot be adopted, the law makes us to move to Rule 28. The Rule 28 provides a mechanism to determine the supply between related person. Firstly, the value shall be determined on the basis of open market value. Second, if the open market value is not been available, we can take value of like kind and quality. If value of like kind and quality is not available, value shall be determined as per Rule 30 and Rule 31. Rule 30 provides the mechanism of cost plus 10%. Open market value has been defined under GST Act as a full value in money, and it shall be determined at the point of time supply has been made. But interestingly, there's two more condition. Price should be the sole consideration. The buyer and seller should not be a related party.
So, all I would like to conclude on this valuation aspect is that wherever a transaction is taxable, then government has also created one more complexity in terms of valuation. The law is not very simple by simply saying that whatever you recover would be the taxable value. You have to test the open market value of that transaction as well. So we will deliberate more on this open market value concept in case of specific case studies. So if we move forward in the concept of valuation, I think 2017 press release was a big uh, relief to the industry. And let us now discuss more into the concepts of perquisites and actual supply, because this CBIC press release distinguish these two things. So this dealt with two things, gifts and perquisites. So what does this CBIC press release said? It said that if you talk about gifts, now gifts are something which are voluntary in nature and these are made occasional. An employee cannot move an employer in the court of law for obtaining these gifts. If you talk about perquisites, it said that supply made by employer to employee are in the terms of contractual arrangement between both of them. This will not be subject to GST. Now let us wait here. Let's talk more about what is a contractual arrangement and why they are saying this will not be subject to GST. If you really look at any employment contract, then the day you have got a offer letter uh, and a binding agreement to work with the organization, there is a contract which will talk about what would be your compensation, what would be the incidental incentives, what would be the perquisites in terms of travel allowance, food allowance, rent-free accommodation, etc., which will be provided to you. Now, over and above, there would be some HR policies. Here, I would like to emphasize the expression to the employees, which means that there can be many HR policies which is not documented as part of your offer letter. Let's say there is a policy of canteen which permits each one of you, each employees to go and eat food, and there is no recovery for that. The moment you enter into the offices, you are wheeling a company's uniform. If not, then okay, you are coming in company transport. you would be given an access to a furniture, you would be given a laptop with the internet connectivity, you are availing air conditioning services in the organization. If you want to go out, take a break, there are coffee machines who can serve you good tea, coffee, and soups, etc. Now, all of these things are being given to you so that you can easily, comfortably work in an organization. Now, if you theoretically apply the entry of Schedule 1, then yes, there is a supply of movable goods, there is a supply of services as well, and there is no consideration. Now, the question is, should I start charging GST on all this transaction? I'll again go back to the again basic principle like we discussed. There are two more fundamental principles. A, there has to be supply of goods and services, and it has to be in the course and furtherance of business. Forget consideration. We have concluded that everything you'd give to an employee is in the course and furtherance of business. So we are only left with one question, whether it is a supply or not. Here the press release says that whatever you are providing to employee in terms of contractual engagement, these are not subject to GST. It also says that if you are providing services free of charge to employees, then again it will not be subject to GST. So let us understand why. See, in our view, these are the company's expenditure. It has nothing to do with supply to an employee, even though there are ultimate benefits taken by an employee. But just because these are the beneficiary recipient of goods and services, they have no intention to get into a contract to get these services or these goods. You have only provided these facilities to them to perform their duty under the terms of employment agreement. I'll say these are the contractual agreement, a defined thing between the company and the employee. So these are more of an expenditure whose benefit is being taken by an employee. By no stretch of imagination, you can say that there is a supply of goods and services. Since this first test of supply of goods and services is failed, then there is no question of doing a evaluation of this transaction and applying Schedule 1 entry. So with this theory, let us see what is the right tax positioning, considering that there is Schedule 1 which says if you are supplying the goods, even without consideration, that is a supply. I'll again reiterate, first we have to see whether the test of supply itself is being satisfied or not. So when there is a no recovery, like I mentioned, whatever you give to an employee, those are technically company's expenditure. These are perquisites given to an employee. There is no supply, so even if there is no consideration, there is the taxing event is not being satisfied, so no GST is applicable. Now, what would be the scenario when you are doing a full recovery? Now, in case of full recovery, most of the time these things are optional to an employee. When you put up a charge for any goods and services, be it a asset sale of car, bikes, be it canteen supply, be it any other monetization of transaction, then it is not a mandatory thing forced on an employee. These are optional things. You want to choose, then please pay XYZ amount and then avail these goods and services. If you don't want to avail, that's perfectly fine. So when you are monetizing the transaction, then it also gives an impression that this is not completely your expenditure. There is actually a supply of goods and services when you monetize the transaction. Hence, the element of supply is being satisfied. And here the consideration become irrelevant. GST will be applicable. We'll dwell more into it. What would be the valuation in this case in subsequent slide? But as a concept, GST would be applicable. Now, there has been a lot of debate and there are some advanced rulings even on canteen saying even if we have not monetized, it is a supply of service, it should be liable to GST. Go and adopt the open market valuation. So without commenting on that, I'll just give two school for thoughts. A, if I am an employee and I have taken up a cup of tea in the office, if we firmly believe that this is a company expense, not an supply, then why a supply of meal in canteen is different from a cup of coffee? Just because there are more options available in a meal, that is this a guiding criteria? May not be. We know that in organization there are generally first aid kit box. So I had a headache. I went and I took one pill for headache. Again, it's a movable property, and we know that medicines attract GST if sold by pharmaceutics. So the question is there a supply because there is no consideration? Again, there is no supply. If there is no supply, if there is no GST on consumption of pill by an employee, then why would there be a supply when company has supplied COVID related medical treatment items to the employee? So all these things have started taking debate, but again, I'll conclude by saying we have to first test the satisfaction of condition of supply. The moment that is not being satisfied, there is no question of asking GST on this. Things become more complex when there is partial recovery. So in this example, we have assumed that 60% of the cost is being borne by the employer, 40% cost is being borne by, sorry, yes, 40% cost is being borne by employee. Now, to put it in a very simple manner, rules for full recovery and no recovery will apply. So, when to the extent of 60%, the rule of no recovery will apply. To the extent of 60%, it is a perquisite, there is no supply, no GST should be paid. And to the extent of 40%, the rule for full recovery will apply. It is a supply and GST is applicable. So all in all, if there is a partial recovery, then GST would be applied on partial recovery, and there is no recovery, then GST will not apply. Let us test how valuation will come into place. So there is a transportation service on which company paid 100 rupee as a cost. In first scenario, you have done full recovery, and in second scenario, you have done partial recovery. Now, the law says that open market value would be the value of supply at the same point in time where buyer and seller are not related. Again, I'll say that valuation will only come when there is a supply. So, when you have recovered 100 rupee from an employee, that's the monetary consideration of the supply which you have paid. When you have done the partial recovery, so there is a fair room to say that to the extent of non-recovery, it's your expenditure. There is no supply. So to the extent of 60% valuation is not at all needed because transaction is not satisfying the test of supply. To the extent of 40%, yes, you have to satisfy the test of open market valuation. In this scenario, if there is a 60% recovery, then the value of 60% of the cost should be the open market value. In that case, to the extent of recovered amount, GST will be applicable, and recovery amount by default with this logic becomes the open market value in this case. So in this scenario, in our view, even in case of partial recovery, the valuation would be restricted to the actual amount recovered from employee. It will not be the amount or the cost which is being paid to the supplier in the transaction. So like we concluded, in both the scenarios, actual amount recovered from employees would be the open market value. Now let us see few jurisprudence on this part. In case of Trimor India, Haryana AR said that in case you are providing transportation services and there is no recovery, even then it is a supply, GST needs to be paid. In case of nominal recovery, again it is a supply, GST needs to be paid. You have to go adopt the principle of Rule 28. In our considered view, this is the incorrect judgment. Second, in case of MFR hotel, again there was supply of canteen services on free of cost basis. Similar to above ruling, the authority held that it is a taxable transaction and GST needs to be paid. Let's move to another interesting thing. If we have concluded that okay, there are few transactions on GST needs to be paid, then let us understand what is the method to pay GST. We have put a very simple example in poll that assuming there is a notice pay recovery and GST rate is 18% and amount recovered from employees rupees 100, then what would be the value of GST to be discharged on this transaction? Now, there were three options: 18, 15, and nil. 40% of the participants were of the view that GST of 18 should be discharged. 31% stated that no GST would be discharged. So I'm assuming that nil answer was on the point that notice pay per se is not taxable. But let us assume for a moment that notice pay is taxable. Then how would you value these services in terms of GST? 40% said 18 rupees. I'm sorry to say, but 18 is an incorrect answer because there is a concept of com duty. 15 rupee is the correct answer. There are some decimals, but on and on, approximately 15 rupee would be the GST liability. Now let us understand how. So there is rule 35 in the CGST rule, which says that whatever amount you have recovered, if you have not separately charged taxes, then the value of supply would be inclusive of tax. Tax needs to be collected in this way, which is term tax formula, which is value into rate divided by 100 plus rate. So in our example, if you apply this formula of rule 35, then GST of 15 rupee needs to be paid, not GST of rupee 18. We will be discussing this more in our examples. What should now be the course correction if this tax position has been adopted? We'll now move to the third part of our presentation, input tax credit. So Mohit, will you elaborate on this?
Yeah, sure, Gaurav. Till now, we have touched upon two important aspects. Firstly, taxability, and second, valuation. Now we are moving to another very most important aspect, that is input tax credit under GST. Section 16 of GST Act provide that a registered person shall be eligible for credit which is used or intended to be used in the course of furtherance of business. Apart from this, there are few more conditions that need to be satisfied. Firstly, the recipient has received the goods and services, possession of valid documents, furnishing the return, and the supplier has paid and deposited the tax to the government. And one more condition, that is, the recipient has paid the amount to the supplier within 180 days from the date of invoice. Let's say all these conditions have been satisfied. Now one need to see section 17, subsection 5, which provide a restriction on certain transaction. Even all the above conditions are satisfied, the credit on the transaction which fall in the 17.5 will not be available to registered person. Firstly, motor vehicle having capacity of less than 13% will not be available. However, such credit will be available if it is used for transportation purposes. Moving ahead, food, beverages, outdoor catering, beauty treatment, health services, insurance, etc. All this credit would be available if these are supplied as an outward or these are provided under statutory obligation. Let's say canteen, a canteen facility provided in the Factories Act, a credit would be available to the SSC. Moving next, goods lost, stolen, destroyed, or written off, or goods which are used for personal consumption. In all the above scenarios, the credit will not be available to the assessee, bar to certain conditions.
So all your credit blockage will happen under one or the other scenario as mentioned on this slide relating to employee recoveries. We will now start taking a few specific scenarios. We'll start with the one major chunk of the transaction in terms of cost and revenue, which is the canteen services. So let's say this is a XYZ Limited. They have engaged a canteen contractor who is providing canteen services. Contractor is raising an invoice of rupees 100 and he is charging a 5% GST. XYZ is paying 105 to the contractor. XYZ is recovering rupees 30 from an employee, so it is a case of partial recovery in this scenario. Let us test what would be the correct ITC position and valuation. So on ITC position in Feb 2019, the law got amended. Now the present position is ITC is available on canteen services if it is provided under a statutory obligation. In factory, having more than 250 workers, it is a statutory obligation to maintain a canteen. So full ITC will be available. I will emphasize that full ITC on contractor bill will be available irrespective of your recovery amount, whether it is a no recovery situation or a partial recovery situation. To the extent of recovery, when you have paid a 5% GST, then there is a provision under Rule 42, read with the rate notification. It says that to the extent of 5% recovery, the recovery amount would be deemed as an exempt supply. And the provision says that in case of exempt supply, as per the rate notification, If the service is being used to provide an exclusive exempt supply, then no credit is available. If the service is being used commonly for taxable and exempt supply, then reversal needs to be done under rules under 17.2. So let us understand this more in detail. In first scenario, let us see what is happening. I'll again go back to the simple theory. Uh, I'll again go back to the simple theory, like what is what will happen in case of full recovery, what will happen in case of no recovery and partial recovery. So you have incurred a canteen expense, you have done no recovery. Then this expense is a business expense. It is being used to provide taxable service. If you have done a full recovery, then canteen expense is an expense which is used to provide a fully exempt supply of 5%. If you have done a partial recovery, then again both these situations of full recovery and partial recovery will apply. To the extent of no recovery, this is an expense which is used to provide a taxable output supply. And to the extent of partial recovery, this is an expense which is used to provide an exempt supply. So to conclude, in case of partial recovery, canteen service is used both to provide taxable service and exempt service. And we have to apply 17 to reversal, treating it to be a common service, not an exclusive service to provide an exempt supply. We have seen that in a lot of companies, this position is not adopted in the way we are discussing. They have simply reversed ITC to the extent of recovery. So if it's a 40% recovery, then ITC of 40% on canteen bill is being reversed. Now that's not the correct position. So to the extent of recovered amount, it will become exempt supply. Credit on canteen service will fit into the basket of common services. You will apply 42 reversal by taking canteen credit under the basket of common service and the revenue of canteen as exempt supply divided by total taxable supply. Now, interestingly, given the volumes of organization, this reversal comes down to even less than 1% of the total credit. So at the moment, we have seen a lot of companies who are doing access reversal in this get credit, so this can be avoided. Also on output side, like we discussed, there are count duty tax benefits which are available. Again, this is one point which is generally being missed by a lot of companies. So again, on this side, there is an access payment of tax. So what to do now? If we have already done it in the past, let us see how presently we can. So before I get into the other slide, let me just summarize this with the help of number. So in our example, we paid 5 rupee as GST amount to canteen contractor. Like I said, credit of rupees 5 would be available in full, irrespective of your recovery, whether no recovery or partial recovery. Then you have to apply rule 42. There would be a minuscule reversal which needs to be knocked off. And on the recovery part, you have to apply the come tax formula. So again, on output side, the GST amount will be a kind of less than what is normally being adopted if you apply 5% on total recovery amount. So what is the course correction now? See, on input side, we can compute the short claim ITC for the financial year 2021. We still have time. This can be claimed by October 20th of the current financial year. We can change our ITC positioning effective April 2021. And on the output side, we can compute what is the excess payment of GST liability from our side. Since company generally bond these costs, these are not being passed on to employees, then uh, the company can issue a credit note to the extent of this excess payment of tax for the last financial year. And there is a time limit again, which is October 20th to issue this credit note. Similarly, for the current financial year, credit notes can be issued. So with this, at least to the extent of cost for 2021, these can be marginalized and positions can be changed for future. We'll move to another concept of bus transportation. Just a quick brief, in case we are talking about non-AC buses, then the correct GST rate is 0. And if we are talking about AC buses, then the correct GST rate is 5%, both on input side and output side. So again, in this scenario, we have got invoice from the transporter who have charged 12% GST. Now, we have talked about rate present, but in the past there has been confusion on the rate. So just for the sake of example, we have taken 12%. Let's just focus on the point that, okay, there is a levy of rupees 12 as a GST. And we have paid this amount. We have recovered 30 rupees from our employee, 30% recovery we have done. Now, what would be the positioning A on output side? There is no GST because the correct rate on non-AC bus is 0. So no GST needs to be paid. On the input side, full credit will be available. This is for the reason that law got amended, and these buses are generally more than 13 seaters. So now credit is available on motor vehicles which are more than 13 seaters. Again, same logic. If you have done no recovery, then this expense is towards business, not exclusively for exempt supply. And with this logic, again, you will do marginal reversal similar to the logic which we discussed on canteen. In case the subject matter is AC buses, the rate will on recovery will change to 5%. And whatever treatment we have discussed for canteen, same treatment will apply for AC buses as well. Again, there are savings on input side because if you have not adopted these positions, then there are access payment of taxes both on input side and output side. Those can be course corrected as per the provisions of canteen slides. We'll move to another piece of recovery, which is insurance. Now, in insurance, typically these are being recovered partially or at full cost, generally at cost to cost without margins. Uh, so, what would be the right positioning? A, again on recovery side, come tax benefit needs to be adjusted. Now, in insurance, there is an interplay of 17.5 with debars credit on medical insurance. So, which means on first principle, credit is not available. There is one exception which says that if you have provided these services in your business which are being monetized, then you can claim credit. So in this example, we have kind of done approximately 30% recovery on this. So to the extent of this recovery, credit will be available. So you have to apply the formula on insurance cost, and then 5.14 would be the credit which will be available in this transaction. Interestingly, as per the amendment, this full credit is available if insurance is being provided under statutory obligation, even if there are partial recovery made for this, because that condition will be more specific as compared to the other condition where credit is available based on the supply cost. We'll move to a few more expenses. Uniform telephone. I think these are very simpler examples. Whatever you will recover, you will pay 18% GST. Come tax benefit will be available. On ITC part, you have to check whether the subject matter is in the course and furtherance of business. These expenses generally form debate in GST audits or even in service tax audit because there is an element of employee benefit out of it. But all in all, if this is a genuine business expense, uniform telephone, there has been a lot of jurisprudence where they have concluded that the credit will be available on business test. So all in all, credit would be available on these expenses as well under GST. Let us delve into few advanced rulings on these part. In case of Musashi Auto, the subject matter was ITC on canteen services. Authorities held that this is credit is not available even after the amendment in insertion of proviso that credit will be available for statutory obligation. Now, the way they have read the proviso, they have said that the condition of statutory obligation would be read only for the leave, traveling allowance, etc. It should not be read for food, beverage as a canteen. So there is a misreading of proviso. In our view, the proviso will apply to all the types of goods and services supply above the proviso, including canteen services. So to that extent, this ruling is incorrect. Another ruling in case of National Ammonium Company, where the subject matter was guest house expense, hospital expenses, township expenses. Again, they have disallowed on the point that these are not legitimate business expenses. In case of Tata Motors, The subject was transportation services, like GST on transportation services, especially where it was more than 13 seater. So they are held that after the amendment, credit will be admissible on transportation services. We'll move to the next topic, which is the CSR expenditure. So Mohit, please take it over.
Yeah, sure, Gaurav. Now we are coming to a very interesting question. That is, whether a company making an expenditure by the way of corporate social responsibility will be available as ITC under GST. So before going into the ITC concept, let's understand the legislative background. Section 135 of the Companies Act provides that a company which fulfills the criteria under 135 need to make a CSR of 2% of the average net profit of the immediately three preceding financial year. Now Gaurav, the question arises: what if expenses incurred by the company is below 2%?
I think you mean to say about 2%.
Yeah, if it's below 2%, what will be the situation?
So, see, it's a, statutory obligation imposed by any law for the time being. So, even if there is no proviso saying that this would be admissible because of statutory obligation, but I'll say that this is kind of an activity which I have to do to keep my business up and running without any penal consequences. So, this is definitely a necessarily business expense on which credit shall be admissible to the company.
Moving ahead, now we will covering few advanced ruling where have a divergent view has been taken. For example, in case of Dwarikesh Sugars, the free of cost CSS supply made by the company has been held in the course and furtherance of business and ITC has been provided. However, in case of Polycab buyers, Canada advanced ruling, where CSR activity were considered not to be in the course and furtherance of business and were denied under Section 17(5).
So all in all, CSR expenditure credits have been always a subject matter of disputes, even under service tax, especially on the point that the ultimate benefit of these things goes to employees or somebody in the society. So there is always a doubt whether these are in the course or furtherance of business, and we have seen dearth of cases saying it is in the course and furtherance of business. So litigation has just started. Let's see where we conclude this matter in GST.
Now, coming to a few questions that we need to ponder. For example, if a company provides free of cost services like medicine, oxygen to the society at large, what would be the implications under IGST? Second, if these services are provided free of cost to the employee, whether this will be covered under Schedule 1 or still it will be CSR activity for the company. Or what's your view on the same?
So again, Mohit, I'll go back to the very fundamental thing. I took an example of medicine pills. If we concluded that GST is not payable if employee consumes medical medicines in office, then on same logic, till the time I have not monetized the supplies on this COVID related to my employees, again to that extent, GST will not apply. I'll just put one more aspect to this scenario. See, in most of the cases, these items can be bought out items by the company, which means they will buy it from a third party on payment of GST and then they'll supply it to employee. So yes, GST will not apply on supply made to employees as per Schedule 1 entry, but ITC reversal under 17(5) needs to be checked because these are voluntary items given to an employee. So this may qualify as gifts from the GST standpoint. On the point of giving these items free of cost to society, etc., again, both 17(5) and business test will interplay. So credit will be available, but to the extent these expenses are incurred over and above the CSR amount, there is a room to argue that these are gifts in the nature of gifts, so credit reversal will happen. But at least in my considered view, as long as you are supplying it as part of CSR activity, the logic of less than 2% should be applied to these items as well, and credit should be given on these items. But this is just a view. Let's see how authorities take a view on these parts. We'll move to the another part, which is notice pay. So on notice pay, I think this is slightly different because here I will just bring a new concept, which is condition to a contract versus consideration for a contract. So everything which is being recovered in a contract may not be the consideration. Now, every contract will have certain terms and conditions, and there are new consequences if you do not comply with those terms and conditions. Just because there is a recovery on account of non-compliance of terms and condition, it automatically does not fall under the definition of consideration. These are more in the nature of fine and penalty, which is not backed by any supply of services, and hence GST will not be payable. Same dispute is there in notice pay, because let us understand why notice pay. So there is a period, cooling period, that needs to be served by the employee before he leaves the organization. And in case you're not ready to give notice period appropriately, then there is a deduction of salary from your total FNF. Now, this matter has been again a subject matter of dispute. In case of Amneal Pharmaceutical, Gujarat High Court has given a negative decision. We have three GST rulings where favorable decisions have been given. They've said that service tax is not payable on notice pay recovery, and they have adopted the same logic that there is no supply per se in a transaction, so forget consideration. The fundamental test is not being satisfied. And again, these are more in the nature of fines and penalties for non-compliance of contract terms. So this should not be leviable to any taxing thing. So with this, we would like to end this webinar. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar and giving us this opportunity to keep interacting with you. We have tried to cover most of the aspects. We have also covered all the questions raised by the participants before the webinar and during the webinar. These slides and this video would be available on Firm's YouTube channel. In case you still have any doubts, you can please go check this video. And in case you have any other unattended query or there are some after thoughts on this session, we have given our ID info@nityadax.com. Please feel free to write to us in case of any doubt relating to employee related transaction. Thank you so much, and I wish you a good day.